Good evening. This is the Rod of Michael speaking. I'm just coming to you now with my video number 8. And in this video, I'd like to discuss my journey regarding the way the Lord used me in terms of healing in the spirit and in the natural realms. There was many times that I was used to heal people who were sick, some critically ill, but I'll just record the ones that I can remember, the ones that are of significance. And the first one was a construction worker that I worked with. This worker was critical ill, burning up with fever, and I remembered I went to his cabin. I picked him up and I raced to the hospital with him. When I got to the hospital, it was very full, and you had to first record him or book him in. There was paperwork to be done, and I sat him down and I felt that he's not going to make it. There's no time for me to still make it, even though I told the doctors that this man is critically ill, they need to attend to him now. I came back to him, still waiting next to him to wait my turn in the line, when suddenly I felt an electric pulse in my right hand. It was so strong. This pulse was so strong in my right hand. It was like a 240 volt that was just inserted into my right hand. My hand kind of automatically lifted, and I touched this worker that was sitting next to me. And all that power, all that lightning power, all that electricity just left me and went into him. He jumped up and he didn't know what was happening. He jumped up and suddenly he started screaming in the hospital, he's healed, he's not sick, he's healed, everything is okay. And he's running around the hospital in excitement, asking me what did I do. So I said to him, I don't know what happened. I just felt this electric current in my arm, and my arm lifted, and I was just moved to touch him. And that's how he was healed. I then had a friend on my second healing who was dying of the AIDS epidemic or the AIDS virus. One morning he called me. I was still making breakfast and he called me. In fact, his friend called me, said I need to come to his home as a matter of fact, as a matter of urgency, because he's critically sick at home. I didn't want to go at first because this friend of mine did not believe that I was a child of God. He always said that his pastor, he only takes messages from his pastor because his pastor is the one who guides him. But for some reason or other, he called me that morning. I went to him and I asked him, I saw him on his bed. He was critically ill. His cheekbones were showing. His eyes were almost out of his sockets. He was really ill. And as he lied in the bed, I asked him, why did you call me? Where is your pastor now? And he said, no, he wants me to pray for him. I took a glass of water and I prayed over it and asked God to bless it. And I prayed in the room and I told him to drink the water. And I prayed over him. And I told him tomorrow morning he will be running around the yard. I remember as I prayed over him, I saw hundreds of black birds going out of him through his back. I just saw these black birds coming out of him, sort of crow-like birds coming out of his back. And I knew then he's healed. The next morning, about 9 o'clock, because we worked together, I passed by him, and believe me, he was jumping for joy, claiming and ecstatic of how the Lord healed him. I told him then, follow God, tell the world what God has done for you. and never leave God's side. This he did not do. A long story short, after about 2 years of healing, he fell back into sin. I warned him, I told him something worse will happen to him. And around about 3 years, I left him by then. Then I got a call that he's lying in hospital again. And he called for me again. I went to the hospital and I told him, there's nothing I can do. I can pray for him, but he's now in God's hands. He passed on about 3 days after I visited him in hospital. I did pray for him in the hospital. I was with my mother and my family. We prayed for him, but he passed on after about 3 days. I then had a vision on my Healing 3. I had a vision about a girl. I was only given a name of a girl that stayed about 650 kilometers away from where I was staying in a place called Durban. I had a vision of the girl with a weak heart, but I was only given her name. I don't recall her name anymore. But anyway, my mom was in Durban, and my mom met with this girl. And my mom said to me, I am here with this girl with the same name that you were given. And my mom told me that this girl is sick with a weak heart. And I said to my mom, let me pray for her. And we prayed together. I prayed on the telephone, and I knew that God is going to heal her. And she is still living and running around, fully healed as we speak right now. The fourth member was actually a family member, or the fourth healing was a family member that just came back from the doctors, and the doctor instructed him that his heart is no longer functioning and he has days to live, if not weeks to live, just a week or a few days left to live, and that his heart is too weak to sustain him. I refused to believe that, and I was with my brother at that time. So we decided to go into prayer the whole night for him, which we did. We prayed continuously the whole night while he lied in hospital until the next morning. And when the doctor gave him his next report, the doctor was amazed to find his heart was 100% in working condition. It was unbelievable, really, truly a miracle, and God healed him. He is still alive and well today as we speak. The next healing was in the spirit. This one was at the sea. I just saw a group of Indian women that seemed to be coming out of the sea, more than 20 women, and they all were terminally ill with diseases all over their body. I prayed for them in the spirit, and they were all healed. I don't know this woman. I don't know where it was. I just remember them coming out of the sea. I just remember me praying and them receiving the healing from God. The next healing was also in the spirit. It was a man, but I did not know this man. I actually knew his wife that was alive. His wife was dying of AIDS, so she came to me, to my house at that time, or she came to me where I was living, and she asked me to pray for her. We prayed. I prayed for her with my sister and the family. We prayed for her. I remember she could not even walk. She came in a wheelchair. We prayed for her. And that night, the Lord came to me, and the Lord said, she will not be healed because she is receiving prayers from spiritual witches or witchcraft entities. She went to them for healing, and the Lord said she will not be healed. But Lord said that there is a man that I prayed for that night, that I prayed in the spirit, and he also had AIDS. But he already died, and he came to me in the spirit, and I touched him, and he was healed. So I asked the woman who was that man, and I described it to him, and she said, no, that was my husband who had AIDS and died. I said to her, he was healed, and you will not be healed because of your belief in witchcraft spirits. You need to make your life right with God. You need to pray, and you need to ask for forgiveness for the spirit of witchcraft that is prevalent in you. Then I went on and I prayed for a girl who worked with me. This girl was a construction worker. And one day as I was going to my car park, I was leaving for home, I saw this girl coming towards me with a radio in her hand. She had a walkie-talkie in her hand, but she couldn't make it because she was too weak and she fell. I ran towards her to assist her, and when I grabbed onto a walkie-talkie or to a radio, a demonic entity just came out of the radio and it disappeared, and instantly she received a healing. I told her what happened, and she was so happy that God healed her. I then also in the construction, while working, one of my workers also fell down. They just fell down and started to shiver, burning up on the floor. It was too late to try and call an ambulance because the ambulance or the hospital was very far, almost about 100 kilometers away. I just knelt down and I touched him and I prayed. After praying, instantly he woke up and he was healed. This other healing that happened in the natural, in the real, was also a construction worker, one of my workers. I did not know him personally, but I knew he was working somewhere in on the project that I was busy with. I saw him come towards me. I saw him coming towards me holding his stomach in pain and agony. And he was holding. I didn't know him. I didn't know what was wrong. I assumed he's going to the clinic because there was a clinic that one could go to for medicines and for first aid and that type of thing. So I assumed he's going to the clinic, and I continued walking. I called out my name. He said, please sir, because he knew he knew who I was on site, that I was in charge of safety. He knew it. So he said, please sir, can you help me? My stomach is burning. I have a burning stomach. And I looked at him. I said to him, if he goes to the clinic, he will die. If he turns around and follows Jesus Christ, he will live. He looked in the right direction of the clinic, and he looked at me. He looked in the direction of the clinic for the second time, and he looked at me again, and I stood still. He looked in the direction of the clinic for the third time, and he looked at me, and he walked on. He said, I believe in Jesus Christ. And he walked away. And by that time I left him. I didn't still see on his condition because I just see him walking off. About 5 months I was busy with a safety induction. After my induction, I see this boy come towards me and he says, sir, do you know me? I looked at his face. I said, no, I do not know you. He said, you do know me. I looked at him again. I said, no, I do not know you. I work with many people, hundreds of people. I cannot remember faces. And then he recalled the incident. He said, you remember that day when my stomach was on fire? You remember how it was burning? And you told me if I go to the clinic, I will die. and if I turn around and follow Jesus Christ, I will live. He said, the minute I turned around and followed Jesus Christ, the burning instantly left me. And he thanked me, and even today we are still friends on Facebook. So that was a wonderful, miraculous event that the Lord did for him. And the last one I have here on my record was in the Spirit. I found myself in Kenya, I think, or one of the African countries, and I was in the middle of many peoples, and all these people were critical ill with the Ebola virus. I remember how I was so afraid to touch them because the sores were all broken on them, and they were really, an Ebola victim is a terrible death. It's truly a terrible death. So I touched them, and everyone I touched, I remember the first guy I touched, and he was healed. And that is how God led me into an Ebola-ridden area to heal people in the Spirit. So believe it, that spiritual healing is a reality, it's real. God does use his servants in the spiritual realms to perform great wonders, great healings. So always believe that there are those in the natural realms that heal in the natural realms, but there's a lot of God's servants that are doing work in the spiritual realms, work that the world do not know of. The world do not know these people. They work in the shadows. They are not known. They are not known by the world. They are not boastful. They are not people who are on Facebook. They are not receiving money or anything of that sort. And all their assignments is directed by God. Wherever I go in the spiritual realms, it's not something I do on my own. I find myself there, and I find my work that needs to be done in the spiritual realms, and it is done. So this is my healings in the spiritual realm that the Lord used me for. I will continue with much more healings. There was much more work in the spiritual realms. I just don't want to overflow you with long videos. So I try to make it short as possible so that it does not become boring or monotonous. I thank you once again for listening. God bless. Amen.